Hi, I'm Boaz from Boaz International School. Today I want us to do a revision on year 7 and 8 mathematics from the Cambridge, especially those preparing to do their checkpoint. So the first question here is written: simplify ratio 18 to 45. Now to simplify that ratio, before we simplify, I would like to explain something, that what is a ratio. A good example here, if somebody gives you x ratio y, it simply implies it is x over y. So ratios are always fractions. If somebody gives you 4 ratio 3, they simply mean 4 out of 3. So anytime we ever talk about a ratio, we simply means talking about the fraction. And ratios can be written in many ways. Before you simplify this, I would love also to explain something. Somebody may give you a number like 0.4 ratio 3. There is no ratio that is in decimal or in fraction. You should always express them as integers. Integers means whole numbers. When I talk about integers, integers are numbers like -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So a ratio can be negative but cannot be a decimal, but it should always be integrally. So any moment you see a decimal, from the mathematics that we have all learned, 0.4 can be written to be 4 out of 10. So instead of writing 0.4 ratio 3, I write 4 over 10 ratio 3. But remember I said there is no fractional ratios. So we have to put the whole number over 1. Then we multiply both sides by 10. So multiply this by 10. Multiply this by 10. So the 10 will cancel out. I will get 4 ratio 30. And when we talk about to simplify, simplifying means the easier way to do it, 4 ratio 30, you can put 4 out of 30, then you simplify. Like 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 30, 15, which can be written 2 over 15. And I had already said earlier that a ratio is simply a fraction. So 2 over 5, we write it to be 2 ratio 15. So the simplified form of 0.4 ratio 3 is supposed to be 2 ratio 15. So if we get back to this, which we had, it was supposed to be 18 ratio 45. It simply means 18 over 45. And remember, when we simplify, we look at a common factor that divides both the numerator and the denominator. So let's try. 9 goes into 18 twice. 9 goes here 5 times. So the simplified form of 18 over 45 is 2 over 5, which we can rewrite to be 2 ratio 5. So somebody in year 7 and 8, those people are doing the Cambridge, even the CBC, the Kenyan system, for you to simplify that, okay? We simply put it as a fraction, then we look at the common factor. So our answer becoming 2 ratio 5. So this is the simplified form, like what we had done here earlier. Another good example that you may be given, somebody may give you 1 1/4 ratio 4. How do we simplify such a ratio? The first thing that we need to know, having the knowledge of the fractions, that you can always change the mixed number into improper fraction. So we know very well, we normally take the denominator, which is 4, we multiply by 1. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So writing our mixed number into fraction, we are going to get 5 over what? 5 over 4. And remember, we were putting with the ratio what? To ratio 4. Then the next point that you should always learn, when you have 5 over 4, it is a fraction. And our 4 is a whole number. So to make sure that we operate under the same denominator, put this over 1, the whole number part. Then the next point, we look at the denominators, then we multiply by the LCM. So we multiply this side by 4, we multiply this side by 4. So the 4 here will cancel, so I will practically have here to be 5 will remain this side, ratio. 4 times 4 becoming 16. So the simplified form of that ratio should become 5 ratio 16. So this is the correct answer for that part. Okay, let me wrap this part to explain. Now, sometimes you can be given some percentage, then somebody asking you, express it as a ratio in a simplified form. A good example, if I give you 30%, and in year 7 and 8, those people are taking the Cambridge system, you should know that all percentages should always be put out of 100%. Now what you are supposed to do here, you take the 30%, you put over what? Over 100. That is the standard that you should always know. That all percentages, the first thing you do what? You put over 100%. Then we simplify. How do we simplify? We see something common. The upper part is called the numerator. The lower part is called what? The denominator. Then we simply cancel out. The 0 will cancel. So I'm going to have 3 out of 10. And our 3 out of 10 can be written as a ratio to be 3:10. So I think this one should be so clear to somebody in year 7 and in year 8. That they should just need to know all percentages you put over 100. Then you simplify it, then you write it in that form. Having in mind, we must always have our ratios in what? We must have our ratios in integers, which means whole number. Let me give you a good example. If I were to ask you, write maybe 0.7 ratio 5 and 1/3, then somebody asking you, simplify that ratio. Okay, you can pause the video, then try solve it before you check what I'm doing. But remember, when you have 0.7 ratio 5 to 1/3, the decimal part can be changed as what? As a fraction. This one you can take 7 out of 10, then ratio. Remember what we agreed. The mixed number you can always change into improper fraction. And how do we do that? You take the denominator part, which is 3, you multiply by 5, then you get 15. 15 plus 1 is what? Is 16, divide by 3. That is the first step. The next step, look at the denominator and ask yourself, which is the LCM of 10 and 3? Is practically, we can multiply both sides by 30. Or look here, the LCM of 10 and 3 is 30. So we can multiply this side by 30. We can multiply this side by 30. So 0 will go, 3 times 7, we get 21 ratio. Then 3 goes here 1, 3 goes here 10. 10 times 16 is 160. At that step, we don't stop. We ask ourselves if we are to write our ratio as a fraction, which can be written to be 21 divided by 160. Can it be easily simplified? Is there any common factor? 2 cannot go into 2 cases, 3 cannot go. So there is no common factor in 21 and 160. So the simplified form of this ratio remains to be 21:160. I think that is very clear. Changing everything into improper, then the decimal part you simply put over what? Over 100. Let me explain the next. The next point that normally captures ratio, in fact, many times as we teach, the ratio, decimals, and percentages, we normally combine them together. And a good example here, somebody may come and ask you, express the ratio 7:5 as a percentage. Okay? And what do we know? Whenever we talk about a ratio, we normally take the first part over the second part, then we multiply by 100%. Please remember that. That anytime you want to change your ratio into percentage, somebody in year 7 and in year 8. And I think these are more basics that you need to learn, because by the time you will be doing your year 9 checkpoint, before you do your career subject choices in year 10, you must be able to have these basics. And here I explain, changing a ratio into a percentage. It is simply simple. Take the first part of the ratio, put over the next part, then multiply by 100%. And in many cases, here we have a fraction, and here we have a whole number. So take 7 out of 5, multiply by 100, then you put the 100 over 1. That is the best way always to handle it. In the next part, what do? We say 7 numerators, 7 times 100 over, we take 5 times 1. Okay? Then there is a way of simplifying any number like that. You check the common number that can divide both the numerator and the denominator. An example here, 5 goes here once, 5 goes here 20. 20 times 7 is supposed to be 140. So the percentage here is supposed to be 140. That means when you are changing ratio into percentage. What if somebody comes and asks you the decimal, giving you 0.67, convert this into percentage? How do we go about it? Allow me to draw the line here so that we may show it here. Whenever you have a decimal and you are converting it as a percentage, what you are supposed to do, change that ratio or that decimal into a fraction. And the first step here is, since we have 2 decimal places, you will take 67 over 100 because it has 2 decimals. Then you multiply by 100% because we are changing the ratio into percentage. But if you have it, assume you had it to be 0.5, would we still put over 100? No. Since we had only 1 decimal point, you would have taken 5, divide by 10, we multiply by 100 as a percentage because the 1 decimal place. But here we have 2 decimal places. So we put the 100 over 1, then 2 zeros can cancel. 67 times 1, we get 67%. That's how we change a decimal into a percentage. Allow me wrap this part to explain the next concept. Now, what if you have been asked now to change the reverse from a percentage into maybe a fraction? Somebody tells you, if you have been given change 40% into what? Into decimal. Changing 40% into decimal or changing it into what? Into fraction. Somebody who is still in year 7 and 8, it is very clear. Whenever you have a percentage, the first step is to put it over 100. So what you are supposed to do here, take 40, divide by 100. Then you simplify it in simplified form. So we cancel 0, 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 10, 5 times. So you are supposed to get 2 out of 5, changing our 40% into fraction. But if you are to change it into decimal, you simply take 40, divide by 100. Then 0 will cancel. But remember, many a times we have the numerator over denominator. We can do the long division. You put 4 as your dividend and your 10 as your divisor using the long method. So you come and ask, can 10 go into 4? No. If it doesn't go, you put a 0, you introduce a decimal, then you bring a placeholder here, 40. Now 10 goes into 40 how many times? 4 times. So changing your 40% into decimal, becoming 0.4. So it doesn't matter whatever case that they have brought. Let us go to the next question. Now the next question here that was asked, I'm just trying to revise with you guys some questions in year 7 and in year 8. Now the question here is, divide $700 or divide 700 pounds in the ratio of 5, 3 to 2. Allow me to write that. Divide 700 pounds in the ratio 5:3:2. Now, there are so many applications of ratios. It can either be in the business where people are sharing profit or contributing some money to start some business. It's so much in the financial world where people who are doing business, they can either agree to contribute some money in a ratio. Like here they're asking, divide. Maybe you've made some profit after doing some business in your farm or whatever you are selling in a business or in a market. Then you decide, some of you, the directors that were part of that business, sharing some money. Now, how do we go about it? I want to explain it more clearly. Whenever you are dividing a certain quantity by a given ratio, the first step, as year 7 and 8 you are supposed to do, know the total. How do we get it? We have to add all the total parts. So you come and write total parts will supposed to be 5 plus 3 plus 2. That provide it to be 10 what? 10 parts. Now, since we want to divide it in that ratio, what are we supposed to do? We take 5 parts. We come and say, the 5 parts we put out of total. Remember, the total should be equivalent to the total amount that is supposed to be divided. So we multiply, because of, the word of in mathematics means multiplication. So you put times, how many dollars? 700. And we have already agreed that whenever you are multiplying a fraction by a whole number, make sure that you put your whole number over what? Over 1. Then in many cases, for students who don't like the idea of to cancel out, you will just multiply the numerator separately. 5 times 700 over 10 times 1. So 0 will cancel. So you are going to get 350 what? Pounds. Then you go to the next part for 3. You take 3 out of the total parts 10. You multiply by what? By $700. And you conduct the same. You put the whole number over 1. Then you multiply the numerators. 3 times 700 over 10 times 1. The 0 will go. 3 times 70 we get 210 what? Pounds. Then lastly, part 2. You take 2 parts out of 10. You multiply by what? By 700 pounds. You put over 1. Then I take 2 times 700. I divide by 10 times 1. The 0 cancel out. So I get 140 what? 140 pounds. So that is how we divide a quantity by a given what? By a given ratio. We have always to add the total. So ratios can be used to divide quantities. On the same note, we can use ratio to increase or decrease a particular quantity. Allow me to wrap this part and explain. Well, somebody can ask you increase a particular quantity or decrease by a given ratio. A good example, somebody can tell you increase, for example, $1,000 in the ratio, maybe 4:3. And I want to make it very clear to students that normally get the idea mixed. When you have a given quantity and you are either increasing it or decreasing in a certain ratio, it is not like in the previous case that we were adding everything equating to that value. Here we are increasing. Increasing means becoming bigger. Now, if you have $1,000 and you are increasing it, it means the new value must be greater than 1,000. So if we come back here, there is only one concept that you need to understand. To increase or decrease a quantity by a ratio can only be written in 2 ways. You can either write 4/3 or 3/4. What do I mean? You take the first part over second part, or the second part of a first part. So, in basic mathematics, when you increase means something bigger. Now, between 4/3 and 3/4, which one is bigger? We know very well that 4/3 is greater than 3/4. So, practically speaking, when I want to increase my 1,000 pounds in the ratio of 4:3, I will take the greater part of the ratio, which is 4/3, I multiply by what? By $1,000. And as I repeat, when you have a fraction times a whole number, put the whole number over 1. Then multiply the numerator part. 4 multiplied by 1,000, dividing by 3 times 1. When you take 4,000 divided by 3, 4,000 becomes my dividend, and 3 becomes my what? My divisor. Then 3 goes into 4 ones, giving me 3. The remainder is 1. Pull down 0. Into 10 it goes 3, giving me 9. I pull down another 0. So 3, 3. So it's approximately 1,333 what? Pounds and 30 cents when you are increasing a certain quantity. But if the question is twisted, decrease a certain quantity by a ratio, you speak the smaller fraction. So if I were to decrease an example, let me say decrease 120 pounds in the ratio of 2 to 3. Decreasing means smaller. So I will take the smaller part of the ratio, which is 2, over the bigger part, which is 3. Then I have to multiply by what? By 120 pounds. So 2 over 3 times 120, 3 goes here 1, 3 goes here 40. 40 times 2 we get 80 what? 80 pounds. And 80 pounds compared to 120 it is smaller, which means we have already done what? Decreased. So I've taught you how to decrease a quantity by a ratio, and also how to share a particular quantity by a ratio. So thank you for watching. We have our tuition center in Lavington. We do homeschooling. We do mentorship all the way from year 7 to year 13. That is the A levels. We are based in Lavington. We also register you for the Cambridge exams. That is the IGCSE, the A levels, and we can also arrange some evening classes. We also do the online. Please subscribe to our channel, like, and share to your friends. Thank you.